Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Crochet Crowd, as well as my friends over at Joann.com. Today we're going to start our mystery with doing the line square. So you're seeing it's a very large size square and it's really quite fabulous, and this one I believe is the second easiest one of the entire Afghan that we're going to be making together. So there's a total of 4 squares, so there will be a neighbor and also a neighbor diagonal and a neighbor on top. So this is just one. You only have to do one for this particular design. So let's talk a little bit more about this design. If I were to say that there was really a hard part to this particular square, I'd really have to force myself to say that there was anything hard. But I guess the first thing that you have to watch for is the very first time the first gap appears right near the center of your square. So once you get that established, everything kind of grows out from that point, and you use that as your base point in order to make it all work. So without further ado, let's head on down to the studio and let's get started on working this mystery together. So let's get started on week number 1, and this square here is approximately 23 inches by 23 inches. It's pretty large, and this is the only square of the 4 that literally have no texture to it, so it's more of a flat surface. And I know that you can't really see the design here on how it's gonna look, but let me show you the crochet diagram and then I'll bring you back to the written instructions in just a moment. So looking at the crochet diagram, you can see what the pattern's gonna look like better, other than the sample that I've already showed you in the preview. So you're going to notice that we have a gapping space that lines up and it goes out in a V, and then eventually it then switches off and breaks off and it creates this really unique look as it's going out. You're going to notice that the corners are pretty simple. It's just a kind of like a regular granny stitch, really 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and that's really quite easy to maintain. And the hardest part, if there is going to be a hardest part on this one, is just make sure that you get the first gapping space then established, and once you get that one, it basically works out to be able to follow it as you go along. So let's go back to the written instructions because there's a lot of them, but I don't want that to make you afraid from doing this pattern. So immediately when you go to download this, you're gonna say, wow, there's 4 pages of instructions for this and I can't do it because of that. This is the nice thing about the crochet pattern diagram, is that if you are reading diagrams, and I'm gonna show you that as we get going as well, is that if you can do that instead of having to read all these words, you're off to the races. And the reason why there's so many words is that the gapping spaces change. They change location, so it's just not a repeat of the same rows. They just change, so it requires more explanation every time it's happening like that. So it's really not a hard thing to be able to do. Let's take a closer look at the crochet diagram. Let's teach you how to read it, and then I'm gonna get you started, and the rest of it's gonna be up to you to get it yourself all the way to the ending. There is only 18 rounds in this particular square. I just wanted to let you know that all of the squares that we're going to be doing all have 18 rounds only, so it's not like it's a huge commitment on your part. So here is the crochet diagram, and all of them that we have, all the stitch alongs, have all these diagrams that are available throughout the 4 weeks. So you're going to start off in the very beginning, and if you're not sure what the symbols are, if you go to the stitch key on the side, that you can see that you have a chain, a slip stitch, and a double crochet. Those are the only stitches that are involved with making this whole thing. You're going to notice that there's spacing that is creating the lines up into the project. But how do we know really if we're reading the instructions counterclockwise or clockwise? That you can tell really quite easily. Let me show you the secret to that. So looking at the very center that we have here, the same graphics artist that we use on the Crochet Crowd all tends to be the same way, so it all tends to be in counterclockwise. If though there is a change, how you can tell is where the slip stitching is. So you see that when you started here, you chained up 4, which we know, and then let's assume that we went counterclockwise because I'm telling you. So we go all the way back around. You can see that there's a slip stitch here. So you notice that it's on this side of the chain, not the other side. So this means that when I came up, I rotated counterclockwise. And when we go to start up round number 2, you'll notice that we slip stitch over to get ourselves here. So once we finished here, we slip stitched, and then we started and again chained up and then went all the way back around. And then in round number 2, you see that the slip stitch here is on this side of the chain, therefore that must be the ending. So every time the slip stitching is on one side or the other, that's telling you what is the very end of the row, so or end of the round. So if the slip stitching was on the other side, so the dot was on the other side as it came all the way around, it means that we rotate the other way. Technically it really doesn't make a difference if you're reading the diagram in one direction or another. It's just nice to have a standard when it comes to these things. Each one of the sides are the exact same pattern, so what you see happening over here is happening here and here. So when we go to get started, we're going to rotate around and then we're going to create our first gapping space in round number 3. So you're going to notice that as these gapping spaces move, that when you double crochet you chain up. Okay, so you chain over and then you double crochet back down into the gapping space just like you see. So it moves over the gapping space one double crochet as you're going to do it. Now as you move up it'll split up on itself. So once you get to a certain row, and here's the solution to it. Whenever you get 9, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, whenever you get 9 double crochets in a row, that means that it's gonna be splitting off in the next one. And that's true when it hits up to the very top here, is that there's 9 in between here and here, and that's where the splitting is happening. So that gives you kind of an indication of where you are in the pattern for making these kind of situations work. So really as you're going along it's really quite easy to maintain. Let me take you quickly to the sample and then we're gonna get started. So it's really important that you know how to read these crochet diagrams, because I'm only gonna get you started and then you can just follow the crochet diagram in order to follow all these gapping spaces up to create the lines. So here's my sample, here's the starting, and then you can see then in round number 3 we started with the first gap, and then you see that it shifts out just like you see. So the gaps are always made up of a chain 1. So you can see that it progressively builds out, and then what's gonna happen then is that it's going to then split off, and then when it splits off you'll see that there's 2 gaps on either side as it goes in either direction. So it's actually really quite easy to be able to maintain. The only thing I would kind of be just conscientious of is that make sure that you are paying attention to which side the gappings are appearing. Sometimes I've made a mistake and I've actually put a gap on the wrong side, so I've had to frog a little bit, but I've noticed right away every time I've done that. So it's actually pretty easy to be able to maintain. Remember the secret answer is 9 double crochets at the final point of the diamond. So you got 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. There's a gap, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. So that's a great indication to say that that diamond is at its biggest, and then it starts to decrease as it makes its way to the edge, and then finally as you get close to the edge there's one more right on the very edge itself. So let's get started. You're going to need a 5mm size H crochet hook and Caron 1 pound. This is going to be your main color of your afghan. So let's get started. We're going to create a slip knot to begin, and we're gonna chain a total of 4. So this is going to count as your first double crochet in the middle of your granny square. So you're going to chain up 4. So 1, so that is your middle, 2, 3 and 4, and that's your double crochet. So right in the very one, the fourth one from the hook, right where I'm pinching, see where I'm moving, you are going to put in 2 more double crochets into that one. Okay, so just put 2 in. And so this is gonna cause it to rotate around. So 1 and 2. So with the chains that you just skipped over to create that, you have 1 2 and 3. Now to turn a corner, always in this particular project is always gonna be chain 2, so it's nice and easy to remember. And then back in the starting one again, right where I'm pinching and moving, you're going to put 3 more double crochets into that spot. So 1 2 and 3, and then to turn a corner, do you remember what it was? Chain 2. Okay, back into the center again for 3 more. So 1 2 and 3. Okay, and then chain 2, back into the center again for 3 more double crochets. So 1 2 and 3. Okay, so you can see that you have 4 sides done, but you're missing the final corner, so chain 2, and then you want to attach it to the top of the beginning chain 3. So just insert in, pull through and through. So you're in the incorrect area to start, and you'll notice in the instructions, remember I said how to slip stitch. So you're gonna slip stitch into the next one. So just go right into the top of the next stitch, pull through. You're going to slip stitch into the next one after that, pull through, and then slip stitch right into this chain 2 space and hold. So that is round number 1. So let's begin round number 2. So round number 2, there's no gapping spaces at all. We're just going to go once around just to get ourselves established, and we're going to chain up 3. So 1 2 3 counts as your double crochet, and then you're going to double crochet back into that same chain 2 corner space. Now we're gonna officially turn the corner, so it's always gonna be chain 2, and then coming back into that space you're gonna put in 2 double crochets. So 1 and 2. So now you're gonna work across the other double crochets that are there. There's a total of 3 of them, so there's just gonna be, you can count it if you wish. So 1, 2 and 3, and then you're gonna hit another corner. So the corners will always be as follows. It'll be 2 double crochets into the chain 2 space, followed by chain 2, so that's your official turn, and back into the same space for 2 more double crochets. So 1 and 2. Now you're going to continue around, so just going in 1 into every double crochet that's there. Corner again, so 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. So we're coming up all the way around. So we're continuing along. This next corner has 2 double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochet, and then you carry on along the next side. See how I'm just turning the project as I go, and then it's just 1 double crochet in each to the next corner. Okay, 2 double crochets in the next one. That's the next chain 2 space, followed by chain 2 and then 2 more double crochets in, just like that. So just carry on. You're on your final side, so you got 3 more double crochets left. I can see that easily because it's such a small sample, but if you can't see how many you have left, it doesn't really matter either, because the fact is that you just have to put 1 in each one of the ones that you do see. So it's not like you have to count, is what I'm saying. So then you're coming all the way to the start, so come back up and slip stitch to the top of the beginning chain 3, and before you continue on to your next one you have to get yourself to the corner. So slip stitch over to the next one and slip stitch over to the corner, and then you're ready for round number 3. So we've now completed round number 2. So it was a solid going all the way around except for the corners. Of course it'll always be consistent. So you're going to notice then on round number 3 we're going to introduce a gapping. So right now it's right in the very center, so we're going to double crochet into your corner as usual, and then you're going to then put 1, 2, 3 double crochets in a row, chain 1, skip 1 here, and then jump over and then do the others on the other side all the way to the corner, so it's directly right in the middle. So we're gonna do that for all of the sides for round number 3. So let's get started. We're going to chain up 3, so 1, 2, 3 counts as a double crochet, and double crochet back into the same chain 2 space. Now chain 2 to turn the corner, and coming back into the same space you want to double crochet 2 times. So we have all of this to work into as we go. So you can see if you want to follow it along, see, just use your thumbs and you can see there's 1 on each side, there's 2, and there's 3, and right in the center there is 1 left over, and that's the one you're going to skip. So we're gonna do 3 double crochets over. So just double crochet, so 1, 2 and 3. Then you're going to chain 1, skip 1, and then double crochet on the other side of that one, so second one over, and you created your first gapping space, and you're gonna double crochet the remaining of the double crochets that exist on this side. So there is your 3 on the other side of that, and then of course you got your corner. So 2 double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochet, and I'll show this to you one more time. Okay, so we're gonna continue. So we're just establishing that gap for the very first time. So you can either use your thumbs and just grab one of each on one side, grab the next one, grab the next one, and there's the one right in the middle that we want to skip, and you can see it's directly in the middle of the group of 3 as well. So we're gonna double crochet 3 times. So 1, 2 and 3, chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet the second one over, and there's your next gap right in the middle, and you keep on going like that all the way to the other side. So 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets, and then turn your corner. So 2 double crochet, okay, chain 2 and 2 double crochet. So what I want you to do is that I want you to continue all the way around in the same manner. Put your gapping space right in the middle of each one of these. Okay, and if you're not sure, just reverse the video back in order to get to this section again, just to re-show you, and then I'll see you at the end of this round. So I'm coming all the way back around, and I'm just gonna be finishing off in just a moment. You can see I have my gapping space on the final side, and then just coming in and then slip stitch to the top of the beginning chain 3. So we're not ready to go for the next round. Make sure you slip stitch over one to its friend and to the next one right in the chain 2 space, then to begin. So you can see that you have your now gapping spaces right in the centers. Let's go back to the diagram and show you what to do next. So as you now progress, you're going to go in round number 4. So as you continue along, you're just going to look for where the center is, just like you see. So here's the center, what we've already established in round number 3. So when we go to do round number 4, we're going to then split this off. So there's going to be 2 spaces now with a double crochet right in the middle. So I want you to pay attention when you're going to do this, when you see the gapping space, that you have to skip over the double crochet right before it, and then you put in a double crochet and then chain 1. And then you're going to skip over the first double crochet and go into the next one. So this helps establish, so either if you're making the gaps move in one direction, it's always just skipping over the 1 double crochets that you see in order to keep it going. So whether you're going in this direction or that direction, it doesn't matter. You just have to keep watching for that. So as these gaps get further apart from each other, you get more and more double crochets in between them, and it's really quite simple to be able to follow. So let's do round number 4. So let's continue, and I'm going to chain up 3 counts as your first double crochet and then double crochet back in. Okay, and turn the corner, so chain 2 and double crochet twice more into that. So here's the thing. You want to watch for that middle gapping space. So we know that next time, if you look at the diagram, is that the gapping space is going to be over top of this double crochet and over top of this one, and there's a double crochet coming right into the space. So I'm not really counting stitches, I'm just looking to where I need to place. So I'm not really counting stitches, I'm just looking on where to put the stitches. So I'm going to double crochet myself across to where I think I should stop, and I should stop just one before the gap. So let's continue. Just bear with me, folks. I'm trying to show you an easier way to not have to count so much. So I've just crocheted this, and I'm gonna leave this one empty above. Okay, so I'm gonna chain 1 and I'm gonna double crochet into this chain 1 space. So you see that just moved this gapping space over 1. So then I chain 1 and then I skip the next one and I go to the second one over. And so that just split and made the gapping space go in this direction and in that direction, just for visual reasons. And I'm just gonna continue then to go to the end of the corner. I'll show it to you again, no big deal. Coming to the corner, so chain 2, sorry, 2 double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochet. Okay, so again I'm looking for that middle one. I need to split it off, so I need to concentrate on the ones right before the gap and one after the gap. So I'm just gonna double crochet to getting close to where I need to go. I know some of you are gonna say, well, I move your thumb. For myself, I just need to stabilize myself when I'm teaching you here on camera. So I've now got my double crochet. My next one would be over top of this one, but that's where I want my space. I want to chain 1, come into the next chain 1 space and double crochet, chain 1, and I want to skip over this double crochet and go to the one after. So that just made that gapping space then just change into 2. So continue all the way around in the same fashion. I'll see at the end of this round, and we'll just review one more time, and then I'll leave the rest of the square up to you. So I'm coming all the way back to around, and you can see I got my gapping spaces in, just like you see them, the 2 there. And we're going to continue then moving on to the next round. So next round we're just going to continue out the gapping spaces, and they're going to be completely split off in the next one. So just a slip stitch to the top of the beginning, chain 3, and you're not quite done. You have to slip stitch over once and twice into the next chain 2 space. Let's pull back the diagram and let's get you started again, and then the rest of this will be up to you to finish. So we're now going to continue on, and this time we're going to be splitting off, and right now we have the two gapping spaces side by side, but next time they're going to be shifting over, one over to this way and then one over this way, so there will be 3 double crochets in a row. Same rule applies, is that when you come across you want to stop just the one before the one underneath it, chain 1, and then come after it into the chain 1 space, into the next double crochet, into the chain 1 space, chain 1, skip over the next one, and etc. So now you're just gonna follow this out. So it's really kind of hard to be able to teach this round by round, because what's gonna happen is that if you just look at this diagram, you can see that each one of these are just really quite simple to follow if you're just following the lines. So just follow the lines, even if you're not comfortable with crochet diagrams, just follow the lines, because it does make sense. And once you see this all working out, you probably will be a pattern diagram reader after this. So without further ado, let's start your next round, and then I'm gonna leave the rest of the rounds for you to come to the diagram, follow it along, and get all the ways to round number 18. Okay, so let's begin again. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet back into the same space, and then chain 2. You're turning a corner. So at least the corners are nice and simple, right? Right. So you're gonna continue now, and you want to split off this gapping space so that they're more this way and this way. So we're gonna have more double crochets in between them. So I want you to double crochet across until you think that you need to stop. So you're gonna stop 2 before the first gap. You can count it if you wish, but if you're confident you really don't need to. So I'm gonna stop to the one before the double crochet before the gap, chain 1, and go right into the gapping space for a double crochet, and I want you to go into this double crochet. I want you to go into the next chain 1 space, and then chain 1, skip the 1, and go to the second one over. So you're paying attention to where the gapping spaces are appearing to get that. So then you go all the way to the corner. So now you have 3 double crochets that separate the gapping spaces in this round. So you see that there's 3. So once you get all the way to 9, then they start going in the other direction. So instead of growing outward, they grow inward. So coming to the corner, 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. Okay, so let's do your next side. So you're gonna double crochet to where you think you need to stop, and it's gonna be the second one before the gapping space anyway. That just gives you kind of an indication on where to stop. So you can see I have 1 more to go, and now I'm going to create extra gaps. So chain 1, skip this one, go to the gap and put in a double crochet, go into the next double crochet, go into the next gap, and then chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet in the other. So that just moved those out. Do you see that? So what I want you to do is that I want you to follow the diagram, and when it doesn't matter if it's going in, or like if it's going outward as a V, or if it's coming inward, you just have to mind where you're jumping over in order to create the look, and it's really quite simple. Just follow that crochet diagram. If you're a word reader, you can follow those words as well, but the diagram is a lot easier to visually see everything that's going on. And then once you get that first one established way back here, then basically everything is gonna line up anyway, so it's actually really quite easy to maintain. So it looks like a fancy pattern. It technically could be, but it's actually really quite easy to be able to maintain. So please do this until you get to round number 18, and then around 18 you're gonna fasten off, and then join me back here next week as we then continue our journey. So this is the only one that's not gonna be textured out of the 4, and this one is the only one really, you gotta really watch that pattern in order to follow these lines, and the rest of them are pretty straightforward from this point. So until next time, have a good one, and we'll see you again on the stitch along next week. Bye bye. So that's it for now. This is your particular square idea. We're going to move on in week number 2 and do something completely different, something that is really loaded in texture. So these are really kind of a sampler Afghan, and again, that square can make itself into a big size Afghan on its own if you wish. So follow the directions as you see fit, and then just stop in order to make your sampler. But if you're really quite motivated with the squares that you see within the stitch along, you can make those as big as you wish. So until next time, we'll see you again, and it's Mikey on behalf of the Crochet Crowd, as well as my friends over at Joann.com. We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.